In this video, I want to go through my templates for Crime Interrupted podcast. So we're going to have a look how I prep dialogues and then the music and maybe some trailers as well. Crime Interrupted is a podcast produced in partnership with Havas Marketing Agency and the Australian Federal Police, AFP for short. Now, the podcast is 6 episodes, 6 big cases that the AFP solved, and we had privileged access to the investigators as well as case briefs to create these episodes. It was a fascinating project, and have a listen when you get a chance. Casefile Presents team produced that show, and I was tasked with post-production, taking care of the dialogues. We've edited them with Anthony, our editor, but also I wrote the music for the series, as well as done the trailers and then video trail, but that's another video. I want to jump into my Pro Tools session, just quickly go through the dialogues, how I had them set up, and then we'll look at the music libraries I prepped for the show, and that's about it, I think. Maybe we'll look at some trailers as well, maybe, if we have the time. Right, so I had a few sessions when I was doing music for the series. I wanted to show you one with the main score, with the cues, and how I go about creating them, and also which libraries I've used. So for this series called Crime Interrupted, made for the Australian Federal Police, I wanted to go with synth-based music, pads, leads, synth, electronic beats, and so on. Omnisphere, of course, is the best, in my opinion, the best instrument to do so, and I used exclusively Omnisphere for this project. What I also tend to do is that for Casefile Presents podcast, so not for Casefile, but for Casefile Presents, so for the separate projects, I usually buy new libraries for each project, and then create music with these libraries. Majority of the cues will be based on the new library because I want to keep things fresh and just experiment and do something interesting each time. And even though I use Omnisphere in this instance for this show, I bought libraries from Lofstrom. So he's a sound designer, and he had a lot of this sort of sci-fi modern soundscape and sounds, and just great patches and presets. And there was a sale I think, so I just got all of them. And if we look in my Omnisphere and then user directories, so that's his Oralis, Enigma, Equilibrium, Lovestrom, 18, and others. Unfinished is the other sound designer. So all of them were used in this series. And what I've done is I've created 8, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cues, different cues. Each one of them had like 4 textures, so melody, mids, bass, and 1 for pads and textures. And different tempos, and also I had a change in rhythm here, so 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I've got this 8 cues that I prepped. Okay, so 8 in total. What I then do is, first of all, I've done 3 of them in one soundscape, so a selection of cues, and then the next 3 different sounds, and then the last 2 different sounds again. And why do that? So 3 are prepped with the first option in mind, then the next and the next and the next. And what I do in the end, I commit them to audio. So I've ended up with, so these are our 8 cues, and the green is the first soundscape, so the instruments selected for this 3. But as you can see, I've also committed the rest of them, so the rest of the 5 in the soundscape. And I do that for all of them. So for the second one, so 3, 4, 4, 5, and 6 were created with this soundscape, but I've also committed 1, 2, 3, and 7 and 8 with the same sounds, and then 7 and 8, and I've committed the rest of them with the same sounds I've composed 7 and 8 for. And of course, as you can see, not everything fits, so not all the textures played, so I've only had to use the ones that was fine. And then what I also tend to do is when creating a library for podcasts for these projects, I also tend to do cues that are just texture based, slow, ambient, because you don't want to have anything too intrusive, so like melodies or hard rhythms. You also want to have some like ambient stuff, and I've created two different soundscapes, so that's 1 and that's 2, and then from all these 8 cues that I composed, I've committed to audio 2 variations. So what we've ended up with 8 cues. These are the top, so 8 separate musical cues that I've composed for this series, and then each of them has 1, 2, 3, and then 2 of them, 4 and 5 variations. So when we want to count it, we end up with 8 cues and 5 variations of each cue. That gives us 40 different cues, full cues. And when you look at my Pro Tools, each one of them is built from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, around 5. Some are 6, and these are 4. So let's say 5. And if we calculate it, so we got 40 cues, each one of them, let's say 5 textures, it gives us 200 textures. So we got plenty to play with, because even if I use the same cues over and over, I might use them in a different way, different textures from each cue, play with the automation, of course, making each episode of the series sounding original and, not similar to the previous one, by still sticking to the same overall library of sounds that I chose. And if we also look at the names, you can see that I also named the clips. So bass, arpeggios, keys, drums, pads, beat, percussion, bass, keys, lead. So we say theme 1, version 1. So that's the first cue that I've composed here. So that's number 1, as you can see. And so how I named them is theme, the number, which theme was it, then the version of it, so version 1, then what instrument is on that track, so bass, and then the tempo. So we got theme 1, version 1, bass 120, and then theme 1, version 2 of that same theme 120, theme 1, version 3 120, and then theme 1, version 4, theme 1, version 5, and so on. And so I do it for all of them, so I stay in the same naming convention and color convention as well. So, when I'm using this one, I know that brown is version 3, blue is version 2, green is version 1, and the sort of purplish colors are the pad-like, the ambient versions of the cues. So that was my full library that I've created for this series. And now if we jump to let's say one of the episodes. So that's one of the episodes, only 3 people plus the host. So that's the dialogue tracks, and that's the stereo bounced music, so the stereo score with automation, as you can see, written as well. And now you can say, okay, well, where are the cues? Where's the music that you've just showed me? All these, many cues. So if we unhide all of them, so as you can see, I've imported, that was the full library that I've created for this series. And the ones that I've picked, as you can see from the gaps, that's the ones I picked for the episode, and for each scene I've just put, cue here, there, and then created the scenes and wrote automation for each of them. Okay, and then bounce them into a stereo music bounce. So we got music going. When there's something happening, of course, music is louder. And when there's just people speaking, I tend to keep it sort of very, very soft as an ambient going underneath. So yeah, I think that's about it. Of course, I had another session for the theme music. I usually have a separate one, and then I think for the trailer as well. And in another video, I wanna go through how I've done the music for the 30 seconds promo video, which I was commissioned to do as well. But essentially, that's how I created these music libraries for Crime Interrupted, and that's how I've used them in the main mix template with the dialogue. Alright, I hope you enjoyed another deep dive into templates, the sessions, and how the podcasting is done. That's it for now. Check Crime Interrupted podcast. It's available now for free wherever you listen to podcasts. It's really, really good, and I'm sure you like it, even if you're not a true crime fan. I'm Mike. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, maybe subscribe, and I'll see you later.